Imagine waking up to find strangers camping on your land. Then one of them calls 911 on you. I knew something was off the second I spotted the tents pitched in my south pasture. Half a dozen domes scattered like they'd sprung from the dirt overnight, complete with barbecues, lawn chairs, and a woman in a neon visor marching back and forth like she was hosting a neighborhood potluck on a movie set. Most Saturdays, I might spot a few deer grazing that part of the property. Maybe a stray cow nosing along the fence line, but a full-blown camping retreat that was new. At first, I figured it had to be a mistake. Maybe some hikers took a wrong turn. Maybe the local scout troop got lost. But then I saw the signs, hand-painted banners that read HOA Annual Lakeside Retreat, flapping proudly like this was a park they had every right to occupy. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident. This was a takeover. I pulled up on my ATV, boots still muddy from my morning fence check, and hadn't even swung my leg down when she came stomping toward me like she was about to write me a ticket. Pink visor, sunglasses bigger than her face, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. "You are not authorized to be here, sir," she barked before I could say a word. "This is a reserved space for the Lake Mount Pines HOA retreat." I blinked once, twice, then looked around just to make sure I was still standing on the land I'd poured 15 years of sweat into. I knew every inch of this ranch, every broken fence post, every irrigation line, every stubborn stretch of brush I'd cleared by hand. I'd built it from nothing. I owned it free and clear. I opened my mouth to explain, but she was already shouting into her phone. "Yes, 911. There's a dangerous man here. He's harassing our group. I think he's armed." And just like that, I realized I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I was dealing with a full-blown HOA Karen, who thought shouting loud enough turned lies into facts. I stayed where I was, perched on my ATV, arms crossed, watching her command the field like some deranged cruise director. Behind her, families were unfolding chairs next to my hay barn. Kids were poking at the livestock fence with sticks, spooking the cows. Someone had even dragged in a kiddie pool. The disrespect simmered inside me like oil on a hot pan. But I didn't move. I didn't yell. I knew how these stories go. One raised voice from the wrong guy, and suddenly you're the villain, even when it's your name on the deed. She came back, face flushed, voice smug. "Help is on the way," she snapped like she was about to win an award. "The board voted. This is common land now. You're trespassing." Common land. That was rich. My ranch sat 3 miles from the edge of her subdivision. The only thing common about it was that it commonly belonged to me and no one else. Minutes later, the sirens rolled in. 2 sheriff's vehicles kicking up dust as they pulled along the private access road. Karen practically skipped to meet them, voice shrill with indignation. "Officers, he's threatening us. He's ruining our HOA retreat." The deputies stepped out, scanned the scene. Tents, grills, lawn games, someone tossing a frisbee toward my hay bales. Then the older deputy spotted me and cracked a smile. "Well, I'll be damned if it ain't the king of Saddle Ridge himself." Karen's jaw dropped so hard I could hear her visor creak. "You know him?" she gasped. "Known him 20 years, the deputy said. "This here's his land, ma'am. Always has been. You're the ones trespassing." She sputtered, then yanked a folder from her fanny pack like it held the secret to immortality. "Our bylaws give us access to natural spaces," she declared. The deputy took one look, then shook his head. "HOA bylaws don't mean squat once you leave your neighborhood, ma'am. You can't just annex someone's ranch because it's got a nice view. Karen's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. She hissed at me as her followers started packing up their grills and deflating their dreams. This isn't over. I sure hope not, I said, smiling real slow, because I've got a few calls to make myself. The deputies gave them the option to leave peacefully. No charges, no towing, just a clean exit. Most took it, but as the last tent was folded, I saw her still standing by the fence line, arms crossed, eyes burning a hole through me like I just ruined her wedding. And then not an hour later, she came back. This time with reinforcements, a small group behind her, some with clipboards, some carrying printed maps like they were filing land claims in the Wild West. We're invoking Article 17B of the newly amended HOA Charter, she said, louder than necessary, which officially extends the community green space to include this field. Therefore, your presence here constitutes obstruction of communal access. I didn't answer, just let her dig. She handed me a black and white map with a crudely drawn circle around my ranch. The words HOA Zone scrawled in Sharpie like it meant something. Ma'am, I said slowly, you can't redraw reality with a marker. This is private property. It's always been private property, and your HOA has no jurisdiction here. You'll regret underestimating us, she whispered before turning on her heel and marching off like General Patton leading a bake sale brigade. I spent that afternoon documenting every scrap of evidence.
Tire ruts, trash piles, bent fencing.
Then I called my lawyer, Savannah Clark, a no-nonsense ranch girl turned attorney who'd been itching for a fight like this. Send the cease and desist, I told her. Let's do this, right? But Karen wasn't done. That night, I rode down to check the field and saw it. Not just tents now, but folding tables, a portable stage, someone stringing lights like it was prom night. Karen stormed over in a glittery captain's hat, flashing a laminated badge that read, Event Coordinator. This is a sanctioned HOA gathering, she said smugly. You are required to stay 100 yards away under temporary restraining order.
I sterte her, speechless.
She'd actually filed a restraining order against me on my own land. But in doing that, she'd made a critical mistake because by filing that order, she'd officially admitted that she knew this land didn't belong to her, that she was here knowingly without permission, which meant every tent peg, every lawn chair, every speaker wire was now documented criminal trespass. And so I went back to the house, pulled out the old irrigation manual, and smiled. At noon the next day, I watched the chaos from the barn as the underground sprinklers hissed to life, blasting freezing well water across the entire pasture. The tents folded like paper. The food flew. Karen, drenched and shrieking, looked like a drowned peacock as her followers scattered in every direction. You're assaulting families, she screamed, clutching her glitter sash. I pointed to the sign I'd posted that morning. Private property. Trespassers will be soaked. By sunset, half her army had left. The rest were muttering, shivering, dripping wet and very much over it. Karen spent the evening pacing with her clipboard, promising lawsuits and media coverage to an audience that no longer cared. And the next morning, I filed criminal trespass, destruction of property, public nuisance, backed by photos, time-stamped videos, and even statements from neighboring ranchers who'd seen the madness unfold. That afternoon, the sheriff served her papers. Karen shrieked something about injustice and victimhood while her last loyalists quietly packed their cars. Her expression when she got the summons looked like someone had just slapped her with a frozen trout. The court date came fast. I wore a clean flannel and my good jeans. She rolled in like a reality show villain, dragging a suitcase full of fake bylaws and attitude. The judge barely let her lawyer finish his opening before dissolving the restraining order and reading her the riot act about jurisdiction and property rights. She was found guilty on all counts, ordered to pay damages, and sentenced to 100 hours of community service at the local animal shelter. No less. But the best part, since her HOA had used my private road to access their little fantasy retreat, and I held the maintenance rights, the judge ordered them to pay me a monthly fee just to use the road. Karen's HOA would be cutting me checks indefinitely. By the time I walked out of that courthouse, the sun was high, the sky was clean, and peace felt earned. A few weeks later at the county fair, I stumbled on a scarecrow dressed in a pink visor, glitter sash, and sunglasses holding a clipboard labeled HOA permit. It stood tall among the hay bales with a sign that read "Caution, may try to annex your land." I stood there a long time, smiling, not out of spite, but because people finally understood. It wasn't about fences or tents. It was about standing your ground when someone tries to rewrite reality. About saying no and meaning it. Back at the ranch, things went back to normal. The cows stopped flinching at music. The wind sounded like wind again. And one crisp morning, down by the old oak where it all began, I found a hand-carved wooden plaque hanging from a nail. No name, no signature, just 5 words. Respect the land. Respect yourself. And you know what? That's all I ever wanted. She thought a clipboard gave her power, but the land knew who it belonged to. If you believe in standing your ground, hit that like button, share this story, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life showdowns like this one. Now tell me, what would you have done? Now, let me ask you something. What would you have done? Would you have stood your ground or given in to the noise? Let me know in the comments, because sometimes silence speaks louder than shouting and the land remembers who listened.